This is Moment of Fruitfulness, and I want to welcome you to this season of Moment of Fruitfulness. Let me say that this program, Moment of Fruitfulness, is born out of a dream and a desire to help couples achieve their fertility desire. I have been in the medical practice for almost 3 decades as a specialist obstetrician and gynecologist. My name is Professor Joseph Ikechebelo. And at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital and the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, I'm an honorary consultant also at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital. I'm a fertility specialist, a gynecological endoscopy surgeon, and I have practiced as a specialist for almost 3 decades with good experience. And this is why I'm bringing you this opportunity to help you achieve your fertility desire, your reproductive role. A lot of misinformation is there in the public, and those of us who have been trained in this profession will not keep quiet. And so Moment of Fruitfulness is a series. We are starting with our season 1. And in this season 1, we will concentrate on a theme we call About This Time Next Year, You Shall Carry Your Babies. About this time next year, you shall carry your babies. I will explain further on this. And this series 1 will be why multiply. We'll answer the question why multiply, because this is our foundation. And we want to get the foundation right on why you should fulfill your biological role. All the things that are obstacle to you, we'll try and address it today. And because we are going to the foundation and we are trying to actually establish the basis of this moment of fruitfulness, we'll take it back to the beginning. And in the beginning, it says, God created man in his own image. And in the image of God created he him, male and female, created he them. So that's in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 and 28. And God blessed them, male and female, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. And that's the key word we are picking up today. Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it. So that's the beginning. So that your union as a husband and a wife is meant to be a fruitful union, and added to it is the multiplication. And that brings us to that fertility, which is the ability of a couple, man and woman, male and female, to reproduce an offspring of their own kind. And this reproduction is by the process of mating, sexual intercourse. And that's what we want to discuss today. What are those processes? How does this happen? And everything. Let me say that this is your God-given ability. And that's why we say from the beginning, after God created man, he made Adam, he made Eve. For those of you, my audience, who believe in creation, the subsequently multiplication, the human race, animal race, and all races continue to multiply, what we call reproductive multiplication. And that is what we want to establish today. So it's your God-given ability, it's inbuilt in you. The first requirement of this multiplication process is a good quality sperm. This is very important. So that comes from the male, a good quality sperm. When we do our sperm analysis, we talk about 15 million sperms, 50% active motility, and that makes you fit. And that's what we are saying. But now, this good quality sperm is what the male counterpart produces. The second requirement for us to achieve this multiplication process, which is what God has actually built into human beings, is a good quality egg. And that comes from the female. This is the female seed. So you now have the female seed and you now have the male seed. And these two will come together in an environment we call the reproductive environment, which is a conducive environment for this multiplication process to take place. There is no other place you will find this reproductive environment than in the pelvis of the woman. God put this inside the woman. That's why every woman, let me assure you that you're specially and wonderfully made, because God has given you extra responsibility in this process of reproduction. While the man produces the male seed, the female produces the female seed, the egg, the sperm. The woman has the extra responsibility of housing the reproductive environment. And this is very important. When we talk about the challenges, then we see where the woman becomes a very key player in this reproductive process. So we have talked about these three requirements. Now, when we look at this reproductive environment, we talk about the vagina, the uterus, which is the womb, the fallopian tubes, and the totality of the pelvis of the woman. That creates the environment for this reproductive process to take place. And it's important, if we wish to illustrate, and if you're seeing this model, and if we wish to illustrate it so that you can see it and see it clearly from this model that is here. This is the vagina, and you can see this is the uterus, and this is the fallopian tube. This is the pelvis of the woman. And so this is the reproductive organs housed in this environment. And this is very, very important. That's why I want you to have a picture of this in your mind. And this is housed in the woman. And so in this reproductive environment, what really happens when we talk about the reproductive process? In the reproductive process, the sperm comes in through the vagina. And when the sperm comes in through the vagina, the egg comes in through the fallopian tubes, goes through the ovary, and two of them will meet in the fallopian tube, and they form the embryo. And the embryo moves through the fallopian tube to the uterus. And inside the uterus, it forms a plant and starts developing. That is the process of reproduction. And this is what has been created so that every animal multiplies through this process. And for us, this process can take place naturally. We call it the natural fertilization, and it happens inside the woman. And it can also take place outside, which we call in vitro fertilization. And when it takes place outside, which happens in our embryology laboratories, we call it in vitro fertilization. So that the fertilization process now, which is that process of reproduction, can happen inside the woman, natural fertilization, or it can also happen outside, in vitro fertilization, in our embryology laboratories. And these two are well-known, established processes. Once the embryo is formed, nothing else is added. It continues to grow, continues to multiply, grows from 1 cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells, 32 cells, morular stage, blastocyst stage, inner cell mass, outer cell mass, and the baby is formed. So there's nothing else you add. That's why I say this is God-given ability. It's already in you, the man, the woman, and nothing else is added. And that's how life starts. And this is very, very important for us to understand this process. And this reproductive environment that you have seen in the woman is very important for this process. Remember, in the time of miraculous healings, the ministers of God will tell you about creating an atmosphere for miracle. And when that atmosphere of miracle is created, the blind will see, the lame will walk, the dumb will speak, and the rest of others, miracles happen. For us, in the reproductive medicine, we require a conducive reproductive environment. And once that conducive reproductive environment is created, let me tell you, conception will take place. So essentially what we do is to be sure that your reproductive environment is normal as possible. And if there is anything that has gone wrong, is to return it to the state of normalcy. And again, we can also achieve this in the laboratory when we talk about embryology, where in that conducive environment, allow the male and the female seed, the sperm and the egg, to meet each other and fertilize and form the embryo. And this is very important for us. So this environment is important. So now, if we understand this fertility, and we now believe that God has given this ability and this fertility is there, we are now asking that question: why infertility? Why infertility? And today, what is infertility? Let me say that infertility is the inability of a couple to achieve a pregnancy after 12 months, 1 year of unprotected sexual intercourse, regular. So in 12 months, you're married and you've been living with your wife, living together, having sexual intercourse 3 times a week, and unprotected, and at the end of 12 months, there is no pregnancy. It's important to ask questions, and you get to a hospital to be evaluated. When this couple has never achieved a pregnancy since their marriage for these 12 months, we call it primary infertility. And when they have had a pregnancy before and subsequently started trying and they've not been able to achieve another pregnancy, we call it secondary infertility. But what is important is that we are not talking about a single girl being infertile or a single man, but we are talking about a couple. And I want to emphasize this because this is couple issue. The WHO, World Health Organization, has also done something, modified this by saying that if the woman is 35 years and older, we don't need to wait for 12 months. Let me, as you're listening to me, if you're in that age bracket, you don't need to wait for 12 months. Once you're already 6 months into your marriage and the lady is 35 years and above, you seek for medical advice. Don't wait, because 6 months and you're not yet there, we need to start troubleshooting to find exactly what is happening and make amends. And everybody keeps asking the question, why this infertility? We know in our society now that 1 out of 10 couples are infertile. Marriage, mainly in our African setting, Nigeria, and most communities, is actually for childbearing, and particularly for you to multiply and to have a next generation. And this is very important. And because it's important, most environments will consider a childless marriage as a failed marriage. And of course, couples who have not been able to achieve a pregnancy, they pass through all sorts of challenges. Will I call it stigmatization? Will I call it accusations? Will I call it neglect? Will I call it pain? And all sorts of things. You really need to hear their story and show some support and understanding for what I've gone through. What is most disheartening is that a good number of times it is the woman that is commonly blamed when there is no child in the family. Even if when the woman is normal and the man is the one who is infertile, everybody turns around and thinks is a woman. And the thinking is not out of any other thing, but that understanding that the woman houses the environment for reproduction. That is the woman who gets pregnant. That is the woman who the baby grows in the woman, and it's the woman who goes to the labor ward. It's the woman who delivers, and it's the woman who brings forth the baby. So, simple understanding. Oh, this woman is not pregnant. What is wrong with her? But let us understand that in a good number of cases, the problem is not the woman alone. And that's why in medical field, we consider that infertility could result from either the woman or the man, or from both of them. And in some cases, let me say 10% of married couples, none of them will have any problem. So remember what I've said now. Infertility could result from the woman, from the man alone, or from both of them having issues, or from actually none of them. And this is very important to establish from this word go. We've done a study. One of the earlier studies I did revealed clearly that male infertility is on the rise in our society. Today, almost 42% is as a result of male infertility, which is where the challenge is from the male, from the husband. And female infertility is on the decline because most societies now, women tend to be careful because they are carrying the reproductive environment. Every mother wants to take care of her daughter so that the daughter will get married and have children and all these things. It's like the young men now are the ones who are now, allowing themselves, doing every kind of, will I call it, youthful exuberance and other things. And at the end of the day, they come down with challenges and the rest of others. So male infertility is on the rise, and we must take note of that. But what I want to establish to you, my audience, is that for a husband and wife, when there is a fertility challenge, you need to work together in unity. You need to have an understanding, support each other. You're married and you have taken it as for better, for worse, and you have taken it as the love of my life. This same love of your life should actually work with you on this road. Infertility is only a challenge. In my practice, I consider it only as a challenge, and it's a challenge that can be surmounted. That's the message I'm bringing to you this day, that it's a challenge that we can surmount and we can work together to overcome it. It's not, when we look at the burden of infertility that is upon the family, upon the couple, it's not just a medical issue. Don't just limit your fertility challenge as a medical issue. Remember, I've said I am considering it as a challenge. So if it's a challenge is there to be overcome. So you understand that. It will come with emotional issues because you don't understand. A typical example is a woman who married as a virgin and suddenly they can't have a child. A guy who marries the wife as a virgin. He has not even met any other lady. This is my first love and I married her. Why me? So you could have asked all that question. Why me? And your life is full of why me, why me, why me, why me, why me. Today, I'm bringing this message of hope to you that enough of why me, and let us look at solutions to this challenge so that you can move on in your life. It's also regarded as a social stigma today because of the challenge of people thinking that, oh, imagine this woman, how can this man marry another man and two of them are living in the house? And so they have called you a man. They have called you all sorts of names. They have even ostracized you. They have, considered, even in some families, they deny you of your rightful shares because you don't have a child. Yes, these are social issues that we have in our society. It also comes with financial burden. And that's what why I'm bringing this message to you today. You have gone through a lot of things in the hand of charlatans, in the hand of doctors, in the hand of quacks, in the hand of so many others, even spiritual houses and the other places and everything. And people have extorted money from you in the name of bringing solutions to you. But I want you to go through this journey with us on these moments of fruitfulness. In the moment of fruitfulness, we want to bring you the truth, the whole truth about this fertility challenge that you're facing and solutions that can actually change your life. We have talked about the peculiarities in African setting and why women are so much blamed. But in the midst of all these things, I want to say that if you know somebody who is passing through this challenge of infertility, inability to have a child, consider it that your service to that person is to support the person, is to have compassion on the person, and the assurance of hope so that this person will know that it is not the end of the road. I'm going to talk about this statement that we said is our theme for this season, which is about this time next year. You shall carry your babies. This is our foundation, and this is our theme song. Our theme song, so you can actually browse it. It's a song by Advent World about this time next year. It captures what we are saying. The first story is the story of Sarah. This statement is actually quite strong and biblical. In Genesis chapter 18, verse 10, the Lord said, I will surely return. If you have your Bible close to you, and if you're on your phone, you can actually Google it and everything. I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. Sarah did not believe, of course. This, as she laughed and wondered, how could this be now that she was old? Sarah was already menopausal by the time this request came. I mean, imagine. And God waited until she became menopausal. And God waited until she was 25 years into her marriage. That's when this message came. But he said about this time next year. So if you go down to Genesis chapter 21, verses 1 and 2, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said. And the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God has spoken. So God started this about this time next year. You shall carry your babies. And Sarah is a typical example for us, and it can also be your story if you participate with us in this moment of fruitfulness. The second story that actually makes a striking impact is also in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 16 and 17. And it talks about the Shunammite woman. The Shunammite woman. This time Elisha said, at this season, about this time next year, you shall embrace a son. And he said, no, my Lord. This was what the Shunammite woman said. No, my Lord. O man of God, do not lie to your servant. But the woman conceived, and she bore a son about this time the following spring, as Elisha had said to her. Look at it here. God said, the Lord said to Sarah, even when she was already old and past her age, menopausal, and it came to pass. And Elisha said to the Shunammite woman, and it also came to pass. So about this time next year. And I'm challenging you that in this moment of fruitfulness, and as we walk through this journey, I want to tell you that about this time next year, you shall carry your own babies. You shall not remain barren, because God is about to visit you. Look at also the story. My third story is the story of Hannah. Hannah was so troubled. She's made caricature of. Her co-wife had made every caricature of her. And even when in the house, her husband felt so much, and husband will give her a double portion. But that double portion was not enough. Even at a stage, the husband said, am I not enough for you? Am I not more than sons? But Hannah said, no, you are not more than sons. And it's recorded there in the scriptures also that in 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 5 of it, but unto Hannah he gave a double portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord has shut her womb. So this statement, but the Lord has shut her womb, I want, as you're listening to me today, I want you to understand that what you are passing through is not a death sentence. The infertility you're having, the inability to conceive, is not a death sentence. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is an answer for you, and we're getting to that answer. And Eli answered and said, go in peace. And in verse 17, and the God of Israel grant thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, let thy servant find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. And this is true. In verse 19, and it came to pass in verse 20, when the time was come about, that Hannah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord. I want to bring this close to you today and say to you, about this time next year, God said to Sarah, about this time next year, Elisha said to the Shunammite woman, and while Hannah was at the mountain praying, the prophet Eli said, go in peace. God has answered you. I want to tell you, if you are listening to me today, for those who are passing through this challenge of delayed childbearing, that the journey toward parenthood, the road may be long, filled with disappointments. You've had silent tears, you have had social pressures, you have had anxiety, and you have emotional pain. But today I'm telling you that through the technology of reproductive medicine, and in particular what we call assisted reproductive technology, and I'm going to take you through that road, I'm saying to all couples that about this time next year, you shall carry your babies. About this time next year, you shall carry your babies. I've said that infertility is not a death sentence. It is not the end of the road. Today, I've told you, 30 years of practice in this fertility area. Couples who once believed they could never hear a child call them mother or call them father, and now they are celebrating birthdays, they are celebrating school graduations, they are living family milestones because of these advances in our reproductive medicine. We have every answer you can think of, whichever is your problem. What we are looking at is a solution to those challenges. But before you can get this solution, it is important that we determine what is the cause of this challenge that you're going through. Why are you not able to conceive? That is the road I'm going to take you in Moments of Fruitfulness. That we're going to take you through what is the cause of this infertility. There are so many causes, and we're going to take the causes one after the other. And for each cause, we'll give you what the solution is. We'll be able to direct you where you can get the answers. It is important that you be careful of all the fakes, all the fake pregnancies. There are fake pregnancies everywhere today, planting, crypto pregnancies, so many other things that at the end of the day, you are deceived. We want you to have a good understanding of the challenge you're going through and have the answers that you're looking for, so that about this time next year, you can carry your babies. Let me establish that for a couple that is going through this process of infertility, sometimes it surprises me in my practice. A woman comes to you and says she's been infertile for 6 years. And for 6 years, she's been wandering in the wilderness, going from spiritual therapy to herbal therapy to native therapy to the hand of doctors and every other thing. And still, when you ask her, why have you not been able to conceive? What is the cause of your infertility? Says, I don't know. If you don't know, then you will not know the solution. So one of the things we will establish is to help you to know what is the cause of that infertility. A problem known is already half solved. It's a problem solved. And I want to assure you that reproductive medicine, from medications, surgery, assisted reproduction, and all that medical science has deployed, will give you an answer, and you will have your pregnancy. And we are saying about this time next year, you will carry your babies. You don't need to stay more than 1 year going through this hardship, going through this challenge. If you have the resources and you have what you can do, you will carry your babies. This is the introduction of these moments of fruitfulness. About this time next year, you shall carry your babies. Go and look at our theme song, About This Time Next Year, by Advent World. It will give you this information and this challenge. And in this series, we have been able to establish to you why you need to multiply. The sperm and the egg, they come together and they form the embryo, and it goes on. In our next series, we will talk about these details of these causes of infertility. And you have to come on, because we'll talk about the details of the causes of infertility. We're going to start with tubal factors in infertility. And in our second series, Monday next week, 10th of August, we'll discuss that in detail, and we'll give you the solutions. Any challenge you're having on your fallopian tubes, we'll give you the answers. And we'll tell you where you can get those solutions and everything. And you will wait no more. About this time next year, you shall carry your babies. God bless you for listening. Thank you. Now, this is the time to take your questions, because I know any question you have, you can throw it up on all the media that we are using, social, Facebook and TikTok, and I will take up the questions, and I'll be answering the few questions that are there. Questions, please.
Okay, so thank you very much for this interesting topic. We have a question from our Twitter, from our TikTok handle. One of our audience is asking, can a woman get pregnant after the age of 40?
Very good question. So this first question, can a woman get pregnant after the age of 40? And my answer is capital YES. Yes, a woman can get pregnant after the age of 40. She can actually get pregnant, natural conception. Remember I told you that meeting of the egg and the sperm can actually occur, natural fertilization, or we can have assisted reproduction, assisted fertilization, which we call in vitro fertilization. So she can get pregnant naturally. She can also get pregnant through assisted reproductive technology, in vitro fertilization. So 40 years is there. The key question is that at 40, a woman is still menstruating, she's still ovulating, so she can still have a pregnancy. And we'll take it further, so that if there are other questions in that category, I can take it up. When natural conception will be almost impossible is when a woman has gone into menopause. So when she has stopped menstruation, because when she stops menstruation, it means that the eggs have stopped developing, and at that stage, natural fertilization cannot happen anymore, except it's miraculous. What can happen at that time is what we call assisted reproduction, in vitro fertilization. In that instance, the woman who has gone into her menopause will have to receive donated eggs from a younger colleague, fertilize with a partner's sperm, and that could form an embryo, and the embryo will be planted into her womb, so she will also be pregnant. So if you ask me, a woman who is also menopausal, can she be pregnant again? I will tell you, yes, she can be pregnant by this assisted reproductive technology, in vitro fertilization. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question. This is from another user from TikTok. She said, I had a baby 6 years ago after undergoing fibroid operation. Ever since I had my daughter, I have not been able to conceive again. I am currently 45 years. What should I do?
Oh, thank you so much. And that's why you will come on when we get to this next series. We're talking about causes of infertility. And you have actually mentioned one of the causes. You said you had a baby previously and you now had a fibroid surgery and you've not been able to conceive. And the question is, what is the cause? Fibroid surgery is just to remove fibroid. It shouldn't affect your reproduction in any way if it is done properly. But now you've not been able to conceive again. So the first thing is to do a full evaluation of your system and know where the fault is. And once we find out where the fault is, and that is taken care of, you can stay conceived. You're 45, you're still menstruating, so you have two options before you now. Sort out the challenge, and if it is something that can be sorted out, it's sorted out. If it's something that cannot be sorted out, then we move you to assisted reproductive technology. And in assisted reproductive technology, you can actually receive an embryo planted into your womb, and you can conceive again. So let me assure you that your situation can be salvaged, and you can actually have your next pregnancy by this time next year. So visit us, and we can go through evaluating you, and you will have your pregnancy by this time next year, and you will deliver and carry your baby. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. We also have another question still on TikTok. Someone is asking, can a man be infertile and still have a normal sexual performance?
Oh, a very good question. Now, a man, the answer to that question is yes. And let me use this opportunity, because when we are going to talk about, in one of the series, we are going to talk about male infertility, we'll be able to dissect that. But let me actually dissect it in simple method. The sperm and the release of the sperm, which is ejaculation, is actually different from sexual performance. So what sexual performance comes with erection of the penis, so that you can actually have penetration and have a sexual performance. So that is a different cycle altogether. We call it erectile function. Once you have the erection, and you can have your sexual intercourse. But a man can be infertile because the sperm is zero. There is no sperm. All he's releasing is seminal fluid without any sperm in it, or all the sperms are dead. These are all possibilities. It could be zero sperm, it could be dead sperms, it could be malformed sperms, and all the rest. So that is actually what confers infertility on the man, that the sperm is not, which is the male seed, is not working. And so sexual intercourse is different from sperm challenges, and that's what we're going to take subsequently in our causes of infertility and the rest. So that's your answer. A guy can actually have his sexual activities and still be infertile. Thank you.
Okay, just we have a question, and someone is also seeking your opinion. The first question is, what causes miscarriages? And they also want your opinion. They want to know, what do you have to say about men that usually refuse to be investigated for infertility due to cultural reasons? So the first question is, what causes miscarriage? And to get your opinion on men that usually refuse to be investigated.
Okay, let me start with giving the opinion. It says, give my opinion on men that refuse to be investigated because of cultural reasons. Yes. I want to say that from what we have established in the process of reproduction, a man is important, the woman is important, because the male seed must be there and the female seed must be there, and they will have to have a conducive environment in the woman. So it's actually ignorance. It's not cultural reasons. It's actually ignorance that makes the man refuse to be investigated. Because culturally, most cultures, they say every man is fertile. But you know that is not true. Every man is not fertile. And that's why in the cultural setting, when they see that the man cannot impregnate his wife, they try to arrange for another man to perform that role, because of this cultural belief that the man is fertile always. But that's not true. In the modern world where we live, where we are talking about the sanctity of marriage between husband and wife, you cannot actually allow your wife to have a carnal knowledge with another man or sexual experience with another man so that she can conceive. No. And that is why I say to you today that it's out of ignorance that men will refuse to be evaluated. I have said in my introduction that there are more female factors today than female factors. More men are having challenges than women. So, and I said, as a couple, as a husband and a wife, two of you must come together in unity. Go to your doctor, a gynecologist for that matter, and let him investigate you. It's only the knowledge of your challenges between you and your wife and your doctor, and it's not there before any other third party. But the man must always be evaluated, and it's a simple investigation for the man. Just a sperm analysis. That's the first thing that we demand, sperm analysis. And once we do that, from there we can trace all the problems and see how to solve whatever issue the man is having. So let me say once again that notion that a man should not be investigated, or the men saying I can't be investigated because of cultural reason, is ignorance. And I want to appeal to every husband. You go with your wife to the clinic, submit yourself to evaluation. And because this is a union between the two, and the two are important in this union. Then the next question is, why miscarriages? That's a topic we are going to take because I cannot exhaust it in these few minutes. Why miscarriages? But miscarriages usually happen because there is a challenge with the pregnancy, and could be so many things happening with the pregnancy. So when we take miscarriages, I will put it as one of the series we'll handle, miscarriages, and we'll be able to give you all the causes of miscarriages and how to address such issues as they come on. And it's a road you will walk with your doctor. And I tell you that even if you are having repeated miscarriages, the one we call recurrent pregnancy losses, there are answers to it. This is why I'm challenging you today, that medical science, reproductive medicine has come a long way, and God has given knowledge to man to solve these issues, and we can actually help you, and you will get your answer. So if you're there and you're having recurrent pregnancy losses, miscarriages upon miscarriages upon miscarriages, and you're saying to yourself, why me? What have I done? And when can I have a pregnancy and work with the pregnancy? All you need is to get to a gynecologist, work with your gynecologist, and you can walk that road. And I tell you, you carry your pregnancies and deliver your pregnancy and have your baby by this time next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. We also have questions. Someone is asking, is it possible to have signs of ovulation and not be ovulated? And the second question is azoospermia reversible?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that. Let me start with the second one, which says is azoospermia, because I've just finished talking about the male. And so azoospermia refers to the male, and azoospermia means there is no sperm. When we do what we call sperm analysis and there is no sperm in it, the two things that we do is to actually find out whether the individual, whether the man is still producing sperm or not producing sperm. And that's why we classify azoospermia into two, obstructive and non-obstructive. When you have the obstructive azoospermia, it means that the passage through which the sperm is delivered, the sperm is produced in the testes and is delivered to the penis for ejaculation through the seminiferal, through the vas deferens, all the channels, all the dots, and it goes through the vas deferens and particularly through the ejaculatory duct and the rest. So if there is an obstruction on that pathway, then sperm will not come out and it becomes obstructive. So when you go to the testes and do a testicular biopsy, you will find out that their sperms are produced and sperms are stored there in the epididymis. So that in that case, that azoospermia is reversible. That particular category is reversible, because if you find out where the obstruction is and relieve the obstruction, the sperm can come out. Or even if you can't relieve the obstruction, we do what we call testicular aspiration or epididymal aspiration of the sperms, and we use those sperms in the laboratory and use it to fertilize the egg. It works, and so that's the answer to that. But when it's not a non-obstructive, then you analyze and you find out that the testis itself is no longer producing sperm. That is the one that is not reversible, because there is no production. And when you test the testis, either the testis is atrophic or one thing or the other has happened to the testes, autoimmune diseases and so many other things, so that the testes cannot produce again. So in that category, it's not reversible. So that's the situation. So my dear, once you have done a test and it's azoospermic, you need to see a doctor, and they will investigate you further to know whether there is production or no production. And if there is production, the story could change. If there is no production, then that is the end of the road in that matter. But I tell you, your case is not finished. That's where assisted reproduction comes in, and that's where we have sperm bank today. You can actually take a donation from the sperm bank and still get your wife to be pregnant and achieve your reproductive role. Then going to the other question, Chris talked about what's the first question again? What did he say? I've missed out that first question.
Causes of miscarriages.
Yes, I have mentioned it that miscarriages are. We are going to take it in one of the series, and in one of those series, we will handle all the causes that are, and I will give you a full and in-depth knowledge of miscarriages. So that's one of our series, but we'll give you a date when that series will come. Next week, we are talking about causes of infertility, and we are going to talk clearly on tubal infertility, or maybe we may even, in second series, we go to male infertility, so that we can actually address these matters coming from the men. Thank you.
Okay, someone is asking, how long should a couple die before seeking medical help? And we also have another question, so you take it jointly. What are the causes of ectopic pregnancy?
Okay, so how long will a couple try? I said at the beginning, 12 months, regular, unprotected sexual intercourse. Then you've not been able to achieve a pregnancy. It's time to go to the hospital and check both the man and the woman and know whether there is a problem. But that's in one aspect. But I also mentioned that according to WHO, if the woman is 35 years and above, you don't need to wait for 12 months. 6 months into the marriage and there is no pregnancy, it's time to start the investigations. The reason is because the woman has a limited time for her reproductive cycle. And so you start investigations early enough. So if you have been there and 1 year into your marriage and you're 35 years and 6 months into your marriage and you have not been able to conceive, then seek the help of a doctor, and I tell you, you can get the answers that you are looking for. You asked also ectopic pregnancy, the causes. Ectopic pregnancy is going to come as one of our series, and in that series we'll discuss all the details. But let me say that ectopic pregnancy simply means that the pregnancy is not inside the womb, it is outside the womb. You have achieved the pregnancy, but that pregnancy is outside the womb, is growing outside the womb, either in the fallopian tube, either in the ovary, either in the abdominal cavity, either on the omentum, anywhere. But that's what we call ectopic pregnancy. The commonest is the one that develops in the fallopian tube. And because that is not the natural incubator for the pregnancy, the natural incubator for pregnancy is the womb. The womb is built to withstand the growth of the baby. It has muscles and everything, and so it will not rupture. Fallopian tube is not built in that way. So if a pregnancy grows in the fallopian tube, after some time, most of the time, not even before 3 months, that fallopian tube will rupture and there will be bleeding and it becomes an emergency. So once we see a pregnancy outside the womb, it's an alarm, it's an emergency, and that pregnancy will be taken out. It's only in few cases that pregnancies have developed in the peritoneal cavity and gotten to a sizable to a sizable growth, and baby even delivered through laparotomy, and there have been cases reported in the literature. But that's about ectopic pregnancy. We're going to have it in one of our series, and we'll give you all the details about ectopic pregnancy and how you will prevent ectopic pregnancy. It's better prevented than experienced, and this is it. So that's ectopic pregnancy for you. We have a few more minutes to go, and I want to take the rest of the questions. So if you are there, throw in your questions, yes, and I will answer you.
Yes. Someone is asking, can previous sexually transmitted infection cause infertility years later? And finally, for today, can a blocked fallopian tube be opened?
Yes. Very good questions. Can sexually transmitted infection cause infertility years later? The answer is yes. And it's yes when that's sexually transmitted, both in the male. It's yes in the male, it's yes in the female. And I want to actually point that out because when we talk about the causes, we are going to also get it. Sexually transmitted infections. Let me start with the male. In the male, sexually transmitted infections, gonorrhea, syphilis, and all the others, most of the time, this infection, if poorly treated, settles in the testes. And that's where it stays in the testes and destroys the sperm. Testis is the sperm generator, or is the sperm production site. And so once you have sexually transmitted diseases, particularly signs when you're releasing pus from your penis and the rest of others, we're going to have it as one of our series. What happens is that the sperm destroys, the infection destroys the sperms. And later in life, you do a sperm analysis and say it's azoospermia, or it says severe oligospermia, low sperm count. That's what sexual transmitted disease causes. So it can cause infertility. In the woman, what does the sexually transmitted disease cause? It affects primarily the fallopian tube. Let me tell you, the fallopian tube is the smallest aspect of the reproductive environment. And when there is infection goes there, starts with vaginitis, goes into the cervix, cervicitis, gets into the endometrium, endometritis, and gets to the fallopian tube, salpingitis. The outcome most of the time is blocked fallopian tubes. So the sexually transmitted infection can block the fallopian tubes. If it doesn't block the fallopian tubes, it will cause adhesions inside this reproductive environment. What is adhesions? It will gum the ovary, the fallopian tube, the uterus, and the intestines together, so that even the fallopian tubes cannot pick up the egg when the egg is released, and so the woman will not be able to achieve a pregnancy. So your answer to your question is yes, sexually transmitted infection can cause infertility in later life, both in the man and in the woman. And you added another one to it, and
yes, if blocked fallopian
whether blocked fallopian tubes can be opened. Let me tell you that the answer to your question again is yes. When you have blocked fallopian tubes, we have a procedure, and this is one procedure I have mastered so much because I brought down this technology from India. We call it hysteroscopically assisted laparoscopic tuber cannulation. Tuber cannulation. We have special techniques we can use to open up a blocked fallopian tube. Either initially, all we do is simple flushing, and most of the time it works. A good number of the times it doesn't work. But when it doesn't work, we also have a surgical method we call tuber cannulation, and we open up the tube. So a blocked fallopian tube can be opened. And so if your tube is blocked and you cannot go through assisted reproductive technology because of the cost of assisted reproductive technology, you can actually avail yourself of tuber cannulation. But there are conditions you will fulfill for you to have this tuber cannulation. That tube must also be healthy enough, apart from that blockage, then it will work when the tube is open. I have a publication in that. If you Google my name and Google tuber cannulation, Google Ikechebelo, and you will see one of my publications on the success rate we have with tuber cannulation, and we have a success rate that is over 40%. Today we have a success rate that is already approaching 60% with successful pregnancies with tuber cannulation. So the answer to your question is yes. Next, if there is any other.
Finally, is IVF the only solution to infertility?
Is in vitro fertilization the only solution to infertility? No, I have not said that is the only solution in this present. I said reproductive medicine. And in reproductive medicine, we have a series. Let me tell you all the challenges that we have. I started saying that we can actually treat with medications. We can also go with surgery. Typically, I'll give you some examples. If you have polycystic ovary disease, which we now call endocrine metabolic diseases, if you have that, you just need medications to bring back your ovulation. So we give you ovulation induction, and you can actually ovulate again and achieve your pregnancy. So there are causes of infertility that can be treated with medications. We can also have surgery. Like we have said now, if your tubes are blocked, you can have tubal cannulation, open up the tubes, and you can actually achieve your pregnancy again. If you have fibroid, you can remove your fibroid, and then you can actually achieve your pregnancy again. If you have ovarian cyst that is actually disturbing your ovulation, you can actually remove the ovarian cyst and return back to normal and everything. So solutions are there, medical, surgical, and then when these are what we call conventional treatments. When these conventional treatments have not worked for you, that's actually the message I'm bringing to you. Time is of essence. Don't wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. In this presentation, I'm challenging you that about this time next year, you'll carry your babies. All I need is 1 year with you, and you will have your babies. You don't need to stay 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and you don't have a solution in your hand. Once we go through these steps, if it's medications, we give you medications. If medications are not there, if it's surgery, you go through the surgery. And if the surgery is not the solution and there is no other thing that can be done naturally or through all these conventional methods, we move you to assisted reproductive method. And through assisted reproductive method, in vitro fertilization, you will conceive. So you can actually have your pregnancies with other treatments apart from in vitro fertilization. So, my dear, it's been a wonderful time with you, and we've had this section, Moments of Fruitfulness. This is our first outing, and we'll continue this every Monday, 7 p.m. every Monday. Make it a date with us, and once you are there, next week we have said we're going to start with a series on the causes of infertility. We're going to take a general overview of the causes of infertility, and then we zero in on tubal factors, and then discuss the tubal factors there. And then upper week, we are going to talk about the male infertility, because a lot of interest has been shown in the area of male infertility. So we're going to take all these series. And now this is our series 001. You can actually go back, listen to it, and play it from time to time and every other thing, and enrich yourself. But remember, about this time next year, you shall carry your baby. If you have started this journey with us today, you could come for evaluation, you could come for treatment and every other thing. You don't need to wait 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you're still running from pillar to post, wandering in the wilderness, and you don't know why you're not conceiving. The answers you seek are available. Medical science, reproductive medicine has gone so far. God has given us so much knowledge that there is no challenge that we cannot overcome with the knowledge that God has given us. And I want to bring this knowledge to you so that you can fulfill your biological role, that you can live your life. Let me tell you, it's no longer a good reason for you to say that my wife has not been able to conceive and therefore in this marriage I'm getting a divorce. No. For issues of reproduction, this is your time. You can actually achieve a pregnancy so that you can live with the love of your life and enjoy your marriage. God has used us to restore so many marriages and so many families, and your story will not be different. God bless you for listening to us and being with us at this time. See you again Monday next week, to the glory of God. Thank you.